Hi, Mr. Wright here, and welcome to this film in which we'll work through Edexcel IGCSE Paper 1H from Summer 2024. You can download a copy of the paper by clicking the link in the description, and then you can work on the paper and then watch the film, or you can be working on the paper as you watch the film and work alongside me. Entirely up to you. If you'd like a hand, if you have any questions as you watch the film, then leave your questions in the comments and of course I'll respond. If you want any more resources on any particular topics, let me know in the comments and I'll reply with some links. And of course, if you're taking your Edexcel IGCSE maths exam soon, subscribe to the channel. There's lots on the channel to help you out. Right, let's get on with the maths. Question 1. Right, here are the first 4 terms of an arithmetic sequence. Find an expression in terms of n for the nth term. Well, in this case, my arithmetic sequence is going up in 3s, so the formula for the nth term is going to be 3n, now plus or minus something. In this case, it's going to be 3n minus 2, because that means that the formula gives me a first term of 1. Part B, the nth term of a different arithmetic sequence is 5n plus 17. Find the 12th term. Well, that will be 5 times 12 plus 17. And on my calculator, 5 times 12 plus 17 gives me 77. So that is the first 3 marks of the paper sorted. Let's move on to question 2. 450 students were asked how they travelled to school. Each student walked, travelled by bus, travelled by car, or travelled by bicycle. Each student used just one method of travel. One of these students is chosen at random. Work out how many of the 450 students travelled by car. Well, the one thing we know about all of these probabilities is that they must add to 1. So we know that 0.20 plus x plus 2x plus 0.26 equals 1. So that means that 0.46 plus 3x must equal 1. So let's subtract 0.46 from both sides. So 3x equals 0.54 and divide both sides by 3. So x is 0.18. Now we know the probability of travelling by bus is 0.18. The probability of travelling by car is double that, 0.36. Now we're asked to find out how many of the 450 students travelled by car. So that's the probability of travelling by a car, 0.36, multiplied by the number of students. 0.36 times 450 means that 162 of the students travelled by car. Question 3, I've got to find the highest common factor of 72 and 108. Well, I'm going to do this by writing each of these numbers as a product of primes. And to do that, I'm going to use a factor tree. Now 72, that's twice 36. 36 is 6 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3. And 6 is 2 times 3. So I know that 72 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. Meanwhile, 108, well, that's 2 times 54. 54 is 9 times 6. And 9 is 3 times 3, and 6 is 3 times 2. So 108 is 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 3. Now, of course, you can always check both of those by using the fact button on your calculator. So what is the highest common factor going to be? Well, you could put your factors in a Venn diagram. I could put 72 here and 108 here, and the highest common factor, I need to see what will go into the intersection. Well, they both got a 2 and another 2. They've both got a 3 and another 3. And that means that the highest common factor is 2 times 2 times 3 times 3, which is 36. So that is my answer for number 3. Number 4. Ava records the number of kilometres she drives each month. In April, she drove 943 kilometres, which is 15% more than the number she drove in March. Work out the number she drove in March. I'm going back in time here, aren't I? This is a reverse percentage change. So I'm going to set it up like this. This is April, and we know that in April she drove 943 kilometres. This is March. We don't know what she drove there, but we know that when you increase that by 15%, i.e. when you multiply it by 1.15, you get 943. So I'm going to do 943 divided by 1.15. 943 divided by 1.15 gives me an answer of 820 kilometres for March. And if you wanted to, you could do 820. Imagine that was in here. Increase it by 15%, and I suspect that you'll get 943. Question 5. Right. A, B, C, D, E is a regular pentagon. That's this shape there. This angle, AEF, is 96. That's marked on the diagram. Work out the size of the obtuse angle, FED. That's F to E to D. That's this angle. That's my target. Okay, let's have a look. Well, this is a regular pentagon. So this one here is the interior angle of a regular pentagon. So I'm going to find the exterior angle of a regular pentagon, 360 divided by 5. So the exterior angle of a regular pentagon is 72. So the interior angle of a regular pentagon is 108. So that is 108. And now I'm in a position to find my target angle, angle FED, because it's going to be 360 minus 96 minus 108. 360 minus 96 minus 108. 156 is my answer. Question 5. Question 6. Expand and simplify. Right, well, I'm going to go m times m times minus 8, 5 times m, and plus 5 times minus 8 is minus 40. So that gives me m squared minus 3m minus 40. Solve this equation. Right, well, the first thing I'm going to do is multiply both sides by 3 to sort out that fraction. So that's going to give me 9n minus 12 equals 5n plus 6. Right, I've got an equation with n's on both sides. See which side has the fewest and get rid of them. This side has the fewest, and it's got 5, so I'm going to minus 5n from both sides. Gives me 4n minus 12 equals 6. Right, get the n's on their own, add 12 to both sides. So now I've got 4n equals 18. Divide both sides by 4. Of course, you can use your calculator for that. N equals 18 divided by 4 equals 4.5. That is that the end of that question? Yep, that is the end of question 6. Question 7. Right, looks like a Venn diagram question. I've got a universal set, 23, 24, 20, all the way up to 34. A is the even numbers. Let's write those out, shall we? That's 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34. Is that it? Yes. B is the numbers 23, 29, and 31. And C is the multiples of 3, 24, 27, 30, 33. List the members of the set B union C. So that's the ones which are in B or in C. So it's going to be all of B, and then any more which are in C, which actually is going to be all of them because there is none in the intersection. So B or C is just all of B and all of C. Now, not A and in C. This meaning intersectional and. So to qualify for this, they have to be not in A and they have to be in C. So 24 is in C, but it's in A, so it's not going to qualify because it has to be not in A. 27 is in C, and it's not in A. 30 is in C, but it is in A. 33 is in C, but not in A. Is it true that B and C is an empty set, i.e. that there's nothing in the intersection here? There's nothing which is in B and in C. Yes, it is, isn't it? Because if I look at B, none of those are in C. So yes, it is. And my reason could be there are no numbers in B which are also in C. Let's have a look at this one. Set D has 4 members. And to be in D and in A or C, that's an empty set. So there are no numbers which are in D and in A or C. So if you're in A or C, you can't be in D. So D can't involve any evens or any multiples of 3. So it can't involve any evens or any multiples of 3. So it can't involve any evens and it can't involve any multiples of 3. So only 23, 25, 29 and 31 are left. 23, 25, 29 and 31. It's quite a tricky question, the end of question 7 there. Let's move on to question 8. A cylinder is placed on a table. The volume of the cylinder is that, and the force exerted by the cylinder is 84 newtons. So work out the pressure. Right, well, to work out the pressure, we know the force. Pressure is the force, 84, divided by the area. So we're going to need to know the area, aren't we? We're going to need to know the area of, probably clearer if I draw the area on the bottom, isn't it? Because that's the bit that's on the table. Right, how am I going to find that area? Well, I know the volume. So the area of the cross-section will be the volume divided by 21. So 1575 divided by 21. So the area is 75. So now I'm thinking, I come back to this pressure formula. Pressure equals the force divided by the area. 84 divided by 75. 1.12 newtons per square centimetre is my answer. Question 9. The table gives the amount of rice produced by each of 2 countries in 2020, Indonesia and Argentina. Right, this is an ordinary number, 3.5 times 10 to the 7. So it's going to be 35. That's one of the 10 that's taken care of. So I'm going to have to add 6 more zeros. So my answer is 35 million. In 2020, Japan produced that many more tons than Argentina. Work out the amount of rice Japan produced. Give your answer in standard form. Well, Argentina was this. And onto that, Japan produced this many more. So Japan must be 8.2 times 10 to the 5, which I'm putting into my calculator, plus 6780,000. So on my calculator, that tells me that Japan produced 7,600,000, which now I have to put into standard form. 7.6 times 10 to the 6. And that is my answer to question 9. Let's have a look at question 10. Oh, something to the 0. Well, something to the 0 is always 1. Y to the 9 times y to the power of minus 3 is y to the something, y to the what? What's the rules of indices? What do you do to those powers? You add them, don't you? So y to the 9 times y to the power of minus 3 is equal to y to the 6. So n is 6. Simplify fully. So I've got something cubed, so I'm going to cube each of the things. 5 cubed, a to the 4, cubed. C squared, cubed. You write that a bit more clearly. Cubed, that's a bit better. Right, 5 cubed I can do on my calculator, 125. Now this, you need to know your rules of indices. If you've got a to the 4 and you raise it to the power 3, you multiply those powers. And again, you need to know your rules of indices. And again, you multiply those powers, c to the 6. So that is my answer for 10C. Is that question 10 finished? Yes, it is. Okay, question 11. The diagram shows a roof support. Okay, let's have a quick look at the diagram. I can see a couple of right-angled triangles. I can see an isosceles triangle here. Okay, we've got some measurements labelled there as well, haven't we? Let's have a look. The roof support is made from 4 lengths of wood. A to B, A to C, B to C, and M to C. A, B, and BC are both 9. Okay, there we go. AB is 12. That's marked on the diagram. Angle AMC. AMC is 90, right? So that's also 90. Good. Lewis is going to buy lengths of wood to make the roof support. The wood costs however much per metre. Each length of wood he buys has to be a whole number of metres. Work out the total cost of the wood Lewis needs to buy. So the first length of wood he's going to buy is that 12 metre length, isn't it? So that was okay. Then let's have him buy that 9 metres. And then let's have him buy that 9 metres. So he's only got one more length to buy, hasn't he? Which is this length here. So I'm going to use Pythagoras to find that length. I'm going to draw the triangle C down to M, then along to B, and then that one there. There we go. So that's 9. Now that's 6. That's C. That's M. That's B. So I need to find that length there, don't I? So that's going to be 9 squared minus 6 squared, because I'm not finding the hypotenuse, I'm finding one of the shorter sides, square rooted. Let's work out what that length of wood, how long that's going to be. So square root of 9 squared minus 6 squared. Well, that is 6.7 metres. So he's going to have to buy 7 metres, isn't he, for that? Okay, so now that is the amount of wood he's going to have to buy. 12 plus 9 plus 9 plus 7. He's going to have to buy 37 metres of wood, and each metre costs 21.5 euros. So 37 times 21.5. So how much is he going to spend? 795.50 euros. 795.50. And that's number 11. Number 12. Factorise fully. Well, you might have a kind of good method to do this one. I'm afraid I always just puzzle them out. This one's multiplying to a negative, so I know my sign's going to be a plus and a minus. Now I'm multiplying to 4, So it could be 2 and 2, or it could be 1 and 4, couldn't it? Let's go 2 and 2 to start with, though I have to say I have a suspicion it won't be 2 and 2. And let's do 6y and y, or we could do y and 6y, couldn't we? I've got to get minus 5y, haven't I, here? And so I'm looking at that, thinking it's not going to work. So I'm going to try 1 and 4. Now, if I do 2 and 3, I'm struggling a bit here. 2 and 3, that's not going to work. 6 and 1, that's not going to work. Perhaps I'll have to do it by splitting the y's. Feeling the pressure now with you lot watching. Let's have a look. So can I do 6y and 1y? No, 6 and 1 I can't. So I'm going to try 3 and 2. So I'm going to try 3y here and 2y here. Now if I do 1 and 4 or 2 and 2, it's not going to work. What about if I do 4 and 1? That's going to work. Look, 4 and 1, because then I'm going to get 8 and minus 3. But I don't want plus 8 and minus 3. I want minus there and a plus there, because then I'm going to get minus 8y's and plus 3y's, which is going to give me minus 5y altogether. So that's my answer. And if you wanted to, having worked it out, you can obviously multiply out your brackets, expand your brackets, and check you're going to get what you want. And I am. So I'm happy with that. 12b. I'm adding these two fractions here. So I'm going to write them with a common denominator. Now I'm thinking my common denominator is going to be 12x. So this bottom one, I'm going to multiply that by 3 and that by 3. So that's going to give me 6x plus 3. And this right-hand one, I'm going to multiply that by 4 to get 12x. So I'm going to multiply that by 4. 7 4s are 28 minus 20x. So I'm going to have over 12x, 6x plus 3 plus 28 minus 20x. So that's going to be minus 14x plus 31. That's the 6x minus the 20x gives me minus 14x. Plus 3 plus 28 gives me plus 31, all over 12x, which I can't simplify any further. So that is my answer there. And that is question 12 done. Question 13. Now we've got 2 bags of beads. Got bag A, we've got bag B. Going to take a bead from bag A and then a bead from bag B. So when I take my bead from bag A, the probability of getting a white is 3 out of how many altogether? 3 out of 10. So the probability of getting a black is 7 out of 10. Right. Now time to do bag B. So if I took a white from bag A, well, of course it doesn't matter, does it, what I take from bag A? It doesn't make any difference to the probabilities from bag B. So the probability of choosing a white from bag B is 5 out of 9. The probability of choosing a black is 4 out of 9. And similarly, 5 out of 9, 4 out of 9. There's my probability tree diagram complete. Work out the probability that we take 2 beads of the same colour. So that's going to be white, white, or black, black, isn't it? Well, the probability of white, white is 3/10 times 5/9, and then I'm going to add the probability of taking a black followed by a black. So all I've got to do is put that in my calculator. So 3/10 times 5 over 9 plus 7/10 times 4 over 9 gives me an answer of 43/90. So that is question 13 done. Moving on to 14. The combined savings of A and B, 5435. The savings of B are 45% more than the savings of A. Well, we need to work out how many dinar A and B are both saved, I think. So if we say that the ratio of A to B is going to be 100 to 145, because then B has got 45% more than A. So that's the ratio there, and that adds up to 245. And in real life, we haven't got 245 dinar, we've got that many dinar. So what are we multiplying by here? Let's have a look. 15435 divided by 245. Multiplying by 63. So now I can work out 100 times 63 for A and 145 times 63 for B. 9135. Right, the savings of B are 1.5 times the savings of C. Work out the savings of C. So the savings of B, 9135, equal 3 over 2 times the savings of C. So there's my equation. 3 over 2C equals 9135. Let's multiply both sides by 2. 9135 times 2, 18270. And let's divide both sides by 3 to give us 6,090 dinar for Chanda. Question 15. Right. Functions. So we're told that this is the function f. State the value of x that cannot be included in any domain. Now, the domain of a function are the numbers or the values that you put into the function, the inputs. And the thing is that if you were to put in a number into this function here, and it were to make the denominator 0, then you'd be trying to divide by 0, and you can't do that. Try it on a calculator, you'll see that you get a math error. So the value of x which cannot be included in the domain is the value that makes the denominator 0, i.e. x equals 2. Right, the inverse function. So here is the function f of x, 3x plus 1 over x minus 2. Now the inverse function, so I'm going to write y equals, and copy down my function, and now I'm going to make x the subject of this. So I'm going to multiply both sides by y plus 2. Sorry, I'm going to multiply both sides by x minus 2. I'm multiplying both sides by the denominator there to bust open that fraction. Let's multiply out that bracket. Now I need to make x the subject, so I'm going to get everything with an x on it on one side and everything else on the other. So I'm going to minus 3x from both sides. And now I'm going to add 2y to both sides. Now, what do I do now? Because I've got 2 terms with an x in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fad it. I'm going to factorize and divide. I'm going to pull out the x. And now I'm going to divide by that bracket. So x will be 1 plus 2y divided by y minus 3. So now I'm in a position to write out my inverse function. My inverse function is going to be this expression here, copied down, but with x in place of the y. So there is my inverse function, f to the minus 1 of x. So here it is, 1 plus 2x over x minus 3. Now, if you've done it slightly different to me, you might have ended up with minus 1 minus 2x over minus x plus 3, which would also be absolutely fine. And there's question 15 sorted. Question 16. There are 20 sweets in a box. 15 are red, 5 are yellow. Fred takes at random 3 sweets from the box. Work out the probability he takes at least 1 sweet of each colour from the box. Now, if you want to, you can write down all the different ways in which he can take at least 1 sweet of each colour from the box. For instance, he could do red, red, yellow, or he could do red, yellow, red, or yellow, red, red, or he could do yellow, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, yellow. Now, of course, he could also take red, 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 or yellow, 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 but those wouldn't qualify, would they? So you can see 2, 4, 6, that there are 8 different things that can happen, and you could work out the probability of each of these and add them up if you really wanted to. But I think it would be better to work out the probability of those two and subtract from 1. So I'm going to do 1 minus the probability of him getting 3 reds minus the probability of him getting 3 yellows. So that's going to be 1 minus. Now, probability of getting 3 reds. Well, that's going to be 15 out of 20, and then the probability of the next one being red, 14 out of 19. Probability of the next one being red, 13 out of 18. Minus the probability of getting 3 Ys. Well, the first one being yellow, and then if the first one's yellow, he's only got 4 yellows left out of the 19. He's only got 3 yellows left out of the 18. So my answer is going to be 1 minus, right, on my calculator, 15 over 20 times 14 over 19 times 13 over 18. So that is 91 over 228 minus 5 over 20 times 4 over 19 times 3 over 18. 1 over 114. So on my calculator now, 1 minus 91 over 228 minus 1 over 114 gives me an answer of 45 over 76. And that is how I would do question 16. Question 17. Right. Show that this surd, or this fraction involving surds, can be written as a plus root b, where a and b are integers. So what I'm really being asked to do is to rationalize the denominator. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom here by 3 plus root 5, because that will have the effect of making the denominator a rational number. Let's just work out what the top will be here. So 1 times 3, then I'm going to get 3 root 5s and another root 5. And then root 5 times root 5 is just 5. And what about the bottom? I'm going to have 3 times 3 is 9. Then I'm going to have plus 3 root 5, minus 3 root 5, so they're going to go. Then I'm going to have minus root 5 times root 5, well, that's just minus 5. So I'm going to have 8 plus 4 root 5 over 4. Ah, now just a minute, can't you divide the top by 4? 8 plus 4 root 5 divided by 4 is 2 plus 1 root 5, or just 2 plus root 5. And there you are, in the form something plus root something. That's done. And that's number 17 sorted. Question 18. A curve has this equation. Let's write it down. Y equals x cubed minus 40x plus 1. find the coordinates of both the points on C where the gradient is 8. Well, the first thing I better do is to find the gradient function. So I'm going to differentiate here. 3x squared minus 40, and I need to find the x's that give me a gradient of 8. So I'm going to need to solve this equation. What values of x make 3x squared plus 40 equal 8? X squared is 16, so x is plus 4 or minus 4. Now, have I answered the question? Now, find the coordinates of both points. I haven't found the coordinates of both points, have I? I found the x-coordinate of both points, but now I better find the y-coordinates of each of those points. So my y-coordinates, I'm going to find those by using the original equation. So if x equals 4, then y will be 4 cubed minus 40 times 4 plus 1. Minus 95, and if x equals minus 4, to be careful with my signs here, then I'm going to have open bracket minus 4 close bracket cubed, minus 4 cubed, minus 40 times minus 4 plus 1 gives me 97. So the coordinates of my 2 points are 4 minus 95 or minus 4, 97. That's question 18 sorted. Question 19. Now, let's have a look at this. I'm looking at the diagrams first of all, and I see a quadrilateral, and I see 2 triangles. I don't think they're right-angled, so I'm thinking sine rule, cosine rule, and area formula. Let's see. Now, the question simply says, here's a quadrilateral. Work out the value of x. Give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. Now, sometimes I look at these questions and I don't know how to get x. I can't see my way through the question. So on those occasions, I just take a first step. Just work out something you can. Now, in this case, I've got a 40, a 62, and a something there. So I can work out angle B. 180 minus 40 minus 62 gives me 78. So at least I've taken a first step. Now, sometimes that first step helps you take other steps. Let's have a look. Now, I'm thinking that I've got the 40 and the 12.8. So I can use the sine rule here, because then I've got the 62, and I can find that length there, which I'm going to call little c, as it's opposite that. So in fact, it looks like my 78 was an irrelevant first step. But that doesn't matter. It got me into the swing of things. And maybe it won't be irrelevant. We'll find out, won't we? So I'm going to go c over sine 62 equals 12.8 over sine 40. I'm using the sine rule the way up so that the unknown is on the top. It's the numerator. So I'm multiplying both sides by sine 62 now. And so now I can work out what c is. 12.8 over sine 40 times by sine 62. Okay, so I get, now I'm going to write down enough decimal places so that I don't cause a rounding error. There we go, that'll do. So now I know that c here is 17.58 and so on. Okay, now am I in a position to find x now? Well, if you look at this triangle here, you've got 3 sides, so I can use the cosine rule there to find x. Now the cosine rule that's given to you on the formula sheet is this one, or this is the version of the cosine rule. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. Now I learnt it the other way around, so I don't have to rearrange it each time. And so using the cosine rule to find an angle, I do cos a is b squared plus c squared minus a squared over 2 BC. And I would learn it that way around if I were you. Now in this case, the triangle's all labelled up quite nicely because it is A that I'm finding. So cos A is going to be 15.2 squared plus 13.4 squared minus 17.58 and so on squared, all over 2 times 15.2 times 13.4. Okay, 15.2 squared plus 13.4 squared minus 17.58 369 squared over 2 times 15.2 times 13.4. That gives me 0.249 and so on. And so shift cos equals gives me an answer of 75.57, so 75.6 to 3 significant figures. Question 20. Right, the diagram shows a sector OABC of a circle with a centre O. That angle's 60. Now just a moment. I'm already thinking that's a radius and that's a radius. So they're the same length. So this is an equilateral triangle. Look, it's an isosceles with a top angle of 60. So I know that that's 60. That's 60. So I know that that is the same length as the radius. Okay. Now the area of the shaded segment is 38 square centimeters. Work out the perimeter of the shaded segment. Give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. I need to remember that at the end. Now, in this question, the important sentence is this one. That's going to help us write an equation. Let's call the radius r. Now, we need an expression for the shaded segment. So, the shaded segment is the area of the shaded segment is the area of the sector, which is 1/6 of pi r squared. Is a sixth because it's 60 degrees out of 360. So that's the area of the sector of the whole slice of pizza. But I want an expression for the shaded segment, so I'm going to do the area of the sector, subtract the area of the triangle. Now, how am I going to find the area of the triangle? Well, I'm going to use the half times A times B times sine C formula. So that, on the left there, is an expression for the area of the shaded segment, and I know that equals 38. And now I'm going to use this equation here, 1/6 pi r squared minus 1/2 r squared times sine 60 equals 38 to find r. So let's do that now. I'll multiply everything by 6. Gives me pi r squared minus 3r squared times sine 60 equals 6 times 38. Okay. Right. Now I need to find r, or r squared. So I'm going to pull the r squared out of here. I'm going to get r squared times pi times 3 sine 60. I'm going to factorize and divide, just like I do when you're making something the subject. I suppose after all we are making r the subject here, aren't we? So there is my expression for r squared. Let's work that out. 228 over pi minus 3 times sine 60 equals, that gives me an r squared of 419.49 and so on. And so r is the square root of that. So r is 20.481467. Now I've written down enough decimal places so as not to induce a rounding error. Okay. Now let's go back to the question. What am I asked to find? I'm asked to find the perimeter of the shaded segment. Right, well, the shaded segment, the perimeter of that is going to look like this, isn't it? That length there is simply a radius. And now what about this curved length here? Well, that's a fraction of the whole circumference, isn't it? It's a sixth of the whole circumference because that angle is 60. So I'm going to do that over, it's going to do this over here so you can see it. So the perimeter of the shaded segment is going to be a radius plus a sixth of the diameter. So what I'm going to have here is I'm going to have 20.481467 plus a sixth times pi times twice 20.481467. Okay, let's work that out, and that'll be the perimeter of that shaded section. Right, 6 times pi times 2 times 20.481467 gives me an answer of 41.929 and so on. And I'm asked to give my answer to one decimal place. So my answer is going to be 41.9. And that is question 20. Question 21. It looks like I'm transforming curves. I've got a curve. It's got one minimum point and 5 minus 4. Write down the coordinates of the minimum point on the curve with these equations. Right, I'm going to need to remember my rules. In this case, the change is inside the bracket. So I'm going to change only the x-coordinate. So the y-coordinate will remain at minus 4. And the x-coordinate changes the opposite way, doesn't it? So I'm not going to add 7. I'm going to minus 2. And in this case, the change is outside the bracket. So my original point is 5 minus 4. I'm going to change only the y, and I'm going to subtract 6 from it. So I'm going to end up with 5 minus 10. If you want more resources on this topic, leave me a comment. I've got lots of films on transforming graphs. Question 22. The incomplete histogram. Right, I'm going to need to remember, I think, that the area of the bars is the frequency. It's a histogram, isn't it? Shows some information about distances in kilometres that 100 adults ran last week. Let's not forget that. I bet it'll be important. Now, what does it say next? All of the adults ran at least 5 kilometres, right? So we know that no, there aren't any bars to the left of that mark. None of the adults ran more than 55. Okay, so we know that there aren't any bars to the right of that mark. 14 adults ran between 15 and 20 kilometres, right? Between 15 and 20. All right, so this bar represents 14 adults. Complete the histogram. Right, well, what can I do? Well, my first step here is I know that the area of this bar is 14. Now, I know that the bar is 5 little squares there. So I'm going to do 14 divided by 5 to tell me the height of that rectangle. 14 divided by 5 is 2.8. So I know that this is 2.8. So now I can work out my scale here. Happy with that? Okay, right. I'm wondering what to do next. Well, I can, as a next step, work out how many adults there are in the other bars, because now I know the scale of the frequency density axis. So in this second bar, I've got 15 there. It's 15 wide, isn't it? So the area of this bar is 15 times 3.4. Reading that on the y-axis, so 15.4. 15 times 3.4, there are 51 adults here. Now let's do the same in this bar here. So this bar is 5, 10, 20. So 20 times 0.4, is that? Yes, it is. 20 times 0.4. There are 8 adults there. Right. Let's go back to the question. It says, the incomplete list, right, 100 adults. Okay. So far, I have done how many adults? 51 plus 8 plus 14. 73 adults. So I've got 23 adults left to put up, 27 adults left to put onto the histogram. And these 27 adults are going to be here, aren't they? Now that's a width of 10, so I'm going to go 2.7 up. So my last bar of my histogram is going to be here. And I've made the area equal to 27 so that it represents the remaining 27 adults. So that is my histogram complete. And that's number 22 done. Question 23. Right. I'm going to need the formulas. I'll have from the formula sheet here, I think. A solid shape is made by removing a hemisphere, zone shaded, from the cone. Okay. The radius of the hemisphere is 2x. Right, let's put that in here, shall we? So that is 2x. The radius of the base of the cone, so that's going to be from here to there, is 5x. Okay. The vertical height of the cone is 6x. So this length here is 6x. Okay. Here's a sentence for me. The volume of the solid shape is that. I'm going to be able to write an equation from that to find x. And then it asks me to work out the total surface area of the solid hemisphere. Let's worry about that in a minute. Let's use this yellow highlighted sentence to write an equation, shall we? The volume of the solid shape. Right, well, the volume of the solid shape will be the volume of the cone, which is 1/3 pi r squared h. Now that's the volume of the cone. So the r there, what's the radius of the cone? It's 5x, isn't it? So that's going to be 1/3 times pi times 5x squared times 6x. That's the volume of the cone. And from that, I'm going to want to subtract the volume of the hemisphere. Now, the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. So I'm going to subtract 2/3 pi r cubed because I've only got a hemisphere. And in the hemisphere's case, the radius of the hemisphere is 2x. So there is the volume of the cone, subtract the volume of the hemisphere. And I know that that equals 6948 pi. And now I can solve this equation to find x. It looks like a bit of a monster equation, but I think it'll probably be alright. Let's start by multiplying everything by 3. Okay. So now I'm going to have, and I'll tidy things up a bit as I go. So I'm going to have pi times 25x times, 25x squared times 6x. So I've multiplied by 3 and I've squared that bracket. Minus 2 times pi times, that's 8x cubed, isn't it? And now here I'm just going to multiply that by 3. So I'm going to have 6948 times by 3. 20844 pi. Now I'm going to divide both sides by pi because every one of my terms has got a pi in it, hasn't it? So that's going to make it easier. So I'm going to have 25 times 6 here. That's 150 x cubed there. And I've divided by pi. 16x cubed there, and I've divided by pi, equals 20,844. Now look at the left there, 150x cubed minus 16x cubed. 134x cubed equals 20844. Divide by 134. 20844 divided by 134 gives me 10422 over 67. Now let me cube root that and see what happens. There it is. And I get 5.378 for my x. Now let's go back to the question, shall we? Here's the question. The question is, work out the total surface area of the solid hemisphere that has been removed from the cone. So I have to work out the total surface area of that hemisphere that's been taken out of the cone. Here it is. And it has a radius of twice x. Oh, well, I know what that is. Just do times 2 on my calculator. So the radius of this hemisphere is 10.756. But I find its surface area. Well, the surface area it's got two surfaces, hasn't it? It's got this circular face on the top. So that's the area, that's going to be pi times r squared. So that's pi times 10.576 squared. Plus, now the surface area, the area of the curved surface there, that's the hemisphere, isn't it? So the surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. So I'm going to need 2 pi times r squared. There we go. So that is an expression for the surface area of the hemisphere. So I've got 10.756 on my calculator, times that by pi. And I forgot to square it, so I'll times it by another 10.756, plus 2 times pi times 10.756 squared gives me an answer of 1090.37 and so on. Correct the nearest integer, 1090. And there's question 23 done. Question 24. Right. The polygon has n sides where n is greater than 5. The interior angles of a polygon form an arithmetic sequence. Now I'm already thinking that the interior angles of a polygon, the minute that I read that, I thought, oh, wait a minute, the interior angles of a polygon, they add up to n minus 2 times 180, don't they? You might want to remember that in a bit. Now here's some more information about the interior angles of a polygon. They form an arithmetic sequence. The smallest angle of the polygon is 84, and the common difference of the sequence is 4. So this arithmetic sequence is going to look like this, isn't it? 84, and then 88. That's the first angle, the second angle, the third angle, the fourth angle, the fifth angle, the sixth angle, and so on. Work out the sum of the interior angles of the polygon. Show algebraic working. I see. I think I see. Let's have a look. So let's concentrate on this arithmetic sequence first of all. We've already established that it starts with 84 and it goes up in 4s, and we know there are more than 5 angles. So we know that if we were to list the angles, it'll look something like this, but of course I don't know where to stop. But that sequence has a first term of 84 and a difference of 4, but I don't know how many terms there are in the sequence. Agreed? But I can now write an expression for the sum of those terms. So I know that the sum of an arithmetic sequence from the formula sheet is n over 2 divided by 2a plus n minus 1 d. So in this case, I know the total of the sum of my arithmetic sequence is n over 2, I don't know what n do I, times by twice a, well, it's 168, plus n minus 1 times 4. Okay, so I've got an expression there for the total of my arithmetic sequence, or for the total of all the angles of the regular polygon. Okay. Now, in fact, I have another expression on the screen for the total, the sum of all the angles in the polygon, and it's here. That's the sum of all the angles in the polygon as well, isn't it? So I can write an equation, and my equation is that the total of all the angles in the polygon, i.e. the sum of all the terms of that arithmetic sequence, is equal to the total, the sum, of all the angles of the polygon. Look at that. There's an equation, and I can use that to find n. Now I'm going to start by multiplying everything by 2. So I'm going to have n times 168 plus, I'll multiply out that bracket, equals 360 times n minus 2. Let's multiply out this bracket here. 168n plus 4n squared minus 4n equals 360n minus 720. Okay, now I'm going to end up with a quadratic equation, aren't I? Let's tidy up the left. 4n squared plus 164n equals 360n minus 720. Let's set it equal to 0, as we normally would with a quadratic equation. 164 minus 360. 4n squared minus 196n plus 720 equals 0. Oh, can I divide everything by 4? I think so. N squared minus 49n plus 180 equals 0. Now, I could factorize that, or try and factorize it, or I could use the formula. Okay, I'm going to try and factorize it. I know they're both going to be negative because they multiply to a plus, and add to that negative 49. Wait a minute, it's 45 and 4. So n, because 4 45s are 180. So n could be 4 or 45. So I know how many sides the polygon has. I know it has either 4 or 45, but wait a minute. N is greater than 5. So I know that n is 45. Let's go back to the question, shall we? Work out the sum, it's asking me, of the interior angles. Okay, well, if it's got 45 sides, then the sum of the interior angles is going to be 45 minus, 45 minus 2 times by 180, which is 43 times 180. 7,740. Now you could have worked out that total by working out the sum of the first 45 terms of our arithmetic sequence as well if you wanted to, but I chose to use the n minus 2 times 184. And that's question 24 done. We've done it. We're on the last question, question 25. Let's have a look. We're told, let's write it down while we have to think about it, f of x equals 17 minus 3x squared plus 12x. And we're asked to write that in that form. It wants me to complete the square, doesn't it? So I'm going to write this with the x squares first, and then the x's, and then the 17, because I find that much easier. Now I'm completing the square, so I follow a set routine. The first thing I'm going to do is I want to have a single x squared. I don't like minus 3x squared. So I'm going to take minus 3 out. I'm going to leave me with x squared minus 4x plus 17. I hope you're okay with that change of sign there. Now, I'm going to complete the square on this. So I'm going to have minus 3 Open the square bracket. Complete the square on x squared minus 4x, x minus 2 squared minus 4, plus the 17. So now I'm going to multiply out the square bracket. Minus 3 times x minus 2 squared plus 12 plus 17. So it's going to be minus 3 x minus 2 squared plus 29. Let's look at the question. It wants it in the form here, can you see? So I'm just going to turn that round. I don't think you'd need to, but I'm going to write it as 29 minus 3 x minus 2 squared. And that is f of x written in that form. That is the last question done.
Mr. Wright here, and well done for making it through to the end of the paper. In a moment, I'll show you the grade boundaries, and I'll show you how to calculate what grade you would have got had you been sitting this paper or this set of papers. But first, if you found these video walkthroughs useful, please do hit like. It really helps the channel, and it tells me that you have found the film useful, and it's good to have some positive feedback. Of course, if you want to see more of the same, do subscribe to the channel, and then you'll get notifications every time I post something new. So, the grade boundaries. Well, here they are. And what you need to do is to add together your 2 marks on the 2 papers. Of course, both marks out of 100, so that gives you a total out of 200. And then you can use this table to read off what your grade would have been had you sat this set of papers. Leave me a comment, tell me how you've done, and good luck with your exams.